All rise. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Supreme Court of Florida is now in session. All we have cause to plead. Join me here. Give attention. It shall be heard. God save these United States, great state of Florida, and this honorable court. Ladies and gentlemen, Supreme Court of Florida, please be seated.
Actually, I'm going to ask you to rise. It's a very rare thing that I contradict the marshal. This is the one occasion. But I would like to ask you to remain standing now. And to begin today's event, I ask Lieutenant Alejandro Ravello of the United States Navy and Midshipman Michael Andrew Sanchez of the United States Naval Academy to go to the podium and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I ask that you all join me as we give honor to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is now, thank you very much. It is now my honor to ask the Honorable L. Clayton Roberts of the 1st District Court of Appeal to come to the podium and give the invocation. Judge Roberts.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court, Governor and Mrs. DeSantis, distinguished guests, family, and friends, I've had the privilege of knowing Barbara Lagoa and Paul Huck for quite a number of years. Shortly after their twins were born, Barbara got very sick and had to be readmitted to the hospital. Paul called me about that, and left the following voicemail on my phone. He said, "Hey, Barbara had to go back to the hospital. I've got babies at home, and on top of it, the dog died. I feel like I'm living in a country song." Well, Paul, it may have seemed like a country song, but when I look at Barbara's life and the life that they all have made together, I see a distinctly American song. Let us pray. Almighty Father, thank you for giving us the privilege of living in a country such as this, a country founded on the principles of liberty and justice for all, and a country where the daughter of people who fled communism with only the possessions that they could carry could rise to the highest judicial office of her state. We ask that you superintend over Justice Barbara Lagoa and give her strength and protection so that she may advance the principles of liberty and justice for all. Protect and strengthen Paul, Eloise, Claudia, and Camilla so that they may support Barbara in her service to our state. Likewise, O Lord, bless the justices of the Florida Supreme Court, the other judges assembled, our governor, our legislative leaders, so we may advance the cause of liberty in all that we do. Amen.
Thank you, Judge Roberts. Please be seated. We're delighted to welcome you all to the Florida Supreme Court today for an event that marks a milestone in this court's history, the investiture of a new justice. Since this court first convened in 1846, shortly after statehood, we have had 86 previous installations of a new justice to sit on the highest court in Florida. So this is the 87th investiture to occur in a history that now stretches back more than 170 years. Today, Barbara Lagoa, our dear friend and valued colleague, a judge and former chief judge of the 3rd District Court of Appeal in Miami, formally assumes her place among the jurists who have shaped this state's legal history. We are honored to be joined today by Governor Ron DeSantis, who appointed Justice Lagoa in January, along with our First Lady, Casey DeSantis. We are also honored by the presence today of many esteemed members of the executive branch and the legislative branch. Also joining us are many judges of the county, circuit, and district courts, along with members of the federal judiciary. We also have present a large contingent of honored guests. I saw you queued up on the steps out there from Miami, South Florida, and other regions of the state who have come to be a part of this historic event. As you can certainly see by looking around the room, our notable guests are too numerous to name one by one. We thank you all for coming to this special event. As we proceed with today's program, I also would like to remind everyone that this is a ceremonial session of the court. That means some of the rules that ordinarily apply do not apply today. All of you in our audience today should feel free to applaud when the Spirit moves you and to stand when you want to honor any of the great people on our program today. You should also even feel free to snap some photos to make your own record of today's proceedings. This is meant to be a joyous, celebratory occasion. And with that, I now turn to the starting point, the reason why we are all here today. The chief purpose of an investiture is for the governor of the state of Florida to come here and to present the new justice's credentials to the Chief Justice. The transfer of credentials is the point when the governor's appointment authority has been fully manifested by handing off the official papers to the Supreme Court. In effect, the governor hands off his new appointee, Barbara Lagoa, to the judiciary for service on the Florida Supreme Court. And so it is now my great honor to invite Governor Ron DeSantis to come to the podium for his remarks and then to approach me here at the bench for the presentation of credentials. Governor DeSantis.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, please be seated. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. But after having interviewed him, I didn't say anything to anybody. Not my chief of staff, maybe Casey, but she can keep a secret because I didn't want it to leak. And so we were planning on, as soon as we took office, the next day, I was going to go to Northwest Florida for the hurricane, but then we were going to do the first appointment and then kind of space them out from there. And it worked generally pretty well because no one knew what the heck I was going to do. And it didn't occur to me until the day of my inauguration, after I got sworn in, after we baptized my son at the governor's mansion. My wife's upstairs getting ready for the inaugural ball. I'm going to appoint someone the next day, and I have not told the person who I was appointing. So I called Barbara probably 5 o'clock, and I said, if you can be at the Freedom Tower tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'll put you on the Florida Supreme Court. And she accepted, but, that caused her to have to frantically, because she's very buttoned down, wants to get all the details right. So she was up till 2 or 3 in the morning writing her speech for the big press event we did. And it was a wonderful, wonderful speech and a really, really great moment, to be out there at the Freedom Tower while we're welcoming the first Cuban-American woman to the Florida Supreme Court in our state's history. And she had proven herself as a judge over and over again. She was appointed by, as many of you know, by Jeb Bush in 2006 to be on the 3rd DCA. I asked Jeb, and he's like totally first class. It was a great appointment. And not all appointments you make as governor turn out good, but that obviously was one that he liked very much. And I agreed. It was pretty clear that this was somebody who was a top-flight legal talent, really understood the proper role of the court, and would do a great job here. But I'll tell you what really impressed me the most was just how ingrained the rule of law was in her experience. We were standing there at the Freedom Tower. That's where her parents and many other Cuban exiles showed up fleeing Castro's tyranny and communism. You didn't have a rule of law at that point. It was basically whatever the dictator demanded. And so coming out of that experience, I think people like Barbara really appreciate the fact that we have a written constitution here, that we're a government of the law, not of individual men and their whims and desires. And so it's fidelity to the law, fidelity to the Constitution, which is ultimately, the indispensable element of preserving freedom in our country and here in the state of Florida. And Justice Lagoa exemplifies that. She's lived that. Quite frankly, they were all good candidates, but it was an easy decision for me to make because she has just excelled in so many different aspects of life and has been such a great judge. And so I know she'll serve on this court, hopefully for a long time, with honor and distinction, and really, as governor, to be able to put great people into positions so that they can do great things for the state is one of the best aspects of the job. And when we appointed Barbara, everyone universally said, that's an excellent selection. She's going to do a great. She deserves to be on the Supreme Court of Florida. So it's an honor to be here. Paul, good to see you. Thank you guys for coming. You should be very proud of your mom and for what she's accomplished. And not only obviously being a great judge, but being a great wife and a great mother as well. So Casey and I couldn't be happier to be here today and wish you all the success in the world going forward. So I have this, and I'll ask the Chief Justice if I can approach the bench to provide the credentials for our new justice.
Certainly, Governor. The court now recognizes the Honorable Magistrate Judge Jacqueline BECERRA of the United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida to go to the podium for remarks.
May it please the court. What an honor for me today to speak on behalf of my friend, Justice Barbara Lagoa. Barbara and I grew up about 10 blocks away from each other in East Hialeah. And for all the time I've known her, she's been a star. Barbara's the only child of Tony and Celine Lagoa. Her parents, as the governor mentioned, fled Cuba. They fled in 1966 after living through the tyranny of communism for over 7 years. Her father had hoped to study law, but he wasn't permitted to do so because he refused to pledge allegiance to the Communist Party. When they were finally allowed to leave Cuba, they came to the U.S. to live with one of Barbara's aunts in a little duplex in northwest Miami-Dade. A year later, Barbara, or Barbarita, as she is often referred to at home, was born. Her parents saved up the money to buy a little house in East Hialeah. And as many of those parents of that generation, they believed that the best and the strongest thing they could do for their daughter was to provide her a good education. And with that unwavering commitment, they saved up month after month and sent her to the Immaculate Conception School. Now, for those of you who are already Googling the Immaculate Conception, technically it is in West Hialeah, but only by a block. So all of us who went there know that it's really an East Hialeah school. Now, the Immaculate Conception was a wonderful Catholic school run by the Sisters of Mercy, an Irish order of nuns. Now, these nuns were entirely devoted to us, to our education, and to our community. Imagine that at that time, most of the parents who had sent their kids to that school either didn't speak English or didn't speak it very well. And all of the students, like Barbara, were speaking English as a second language. Now, these nuns were tough. Sister Pauline, Sister Anastasia, Sister Regina, Sister Teresita, Sister Colette, Sister Louise, Sister Josephine. I have to tell you that even saying those names out loud makes me stand up a little straighter. It makes me want to recite either my timetables or the Lord's Prayer or both. Now, these nuns were very smart, and they were very determined. They demanded excellence from each and every one of us. Now, not many of us could reach the standards that the nuns had set for us, but Barbara certainly did. You see, the nuns did something that I don't think is very favored these days. They had favorites. They picked stars, and Barbara was their star. She was the top of her class, head of the Junior Honor Society, and if that wasn't enough, the nuns decided that she had to be the star of our first ever all-school play. Now, we've been to those plays, the plays where, different roles, a role is played by different kids from different classes, just to make sure that all the kids can come and all the parents can come and buy tickets, right? But see, the nuns decided that the star of the show was going to be Barbara, and she wasn't dividing that role with anybody. No. Barbara would be the star Monday through Friday. And the play was actually, very interestingly, a musical retelling of the life of the Virgin of Guadalupe. Now, the Virgin of Guadalupe is the patron saint of Mexico, and she's really an interesting apparition of Mary because she wasn't appearing to cure sick children. She kept appearing to force a group of Mexican peasants to build a big basilica for her. Now, I promise you that there isn't a person who went to Immaculate during the 80s who doesn't remember this play. Now, part of it is that the nuns, in addition to having just built this beautiful auditorium, they also had somebody build this enormous contraption that was like a mountain, from which Barbara would descend multiple times during the play in this beautiful cape filled with stars. I had a small part. See, on Monday night, and I still remember my day, I and a couple of my classmates would sing and play songs on a recorder for the Virgin. Now, Barbara went on to Monsignor Edward Pace, where she again was a superstar in every respect. Now, like most girls, Cuban girls from East Hialeah in those days, she didn't go away to college. She stayed at FIU, where she graduated again with honors. She would go on, much to the chagrin of her parents, to live in New York City. She did that because she went to Columbia, where again she graduated with distinction and was a member and an editor of the Law Review. When she graduated, she began her career working at one of the premier law firms in this country, at the Miami office of Morgan, Lewis, and Bacchus. And here again is where I would see Barbara. So I was a summer associate, and we were at a function where the summer associates were being introduced to the star associates of the office. And there she was. I was so excited. I went right up to her. I said, "You're Barbara Lagoa. You're from East Hialeah. You went to Immaculate, and you're the Virgin of Guadalupe." Now, let me tell you, Barbara was not in the least bit embarrassed by this. Instead, she looked at me the way I'm fairly certain she looks at a lot of litigants before her. She sort of tilts her head, and she has that small smile that says, "I'm a well-educated woman. I am polite. I'm listening to you, but the minute you turn around, I will verify every word that came out of your mouth." So I don't know if Barbara left work early that day to check the yearbook, or if she just waited to go home that night. But the next time I saw her, she said to me, "Oh, so you did go to the Immaculate Conception." "You were one of my peasant flute players." Now, I will admit that through the years, I have loved calling Barbara the Virgin of Guadalupe. Paul and I sometimes, just for short, call her the VOG. Like, does the VOG want to go to dinner? What mood is the VOG in? And every once in a while I feel bad about it, but then I realize that she absolutely loves calling me her peasant flute player. And I was actually, one of the first things I did was check the program because I thought she might list me as the peasant flute player for today's function. Now, years later, our lives would cross again. I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami, and I was heading the hiring committee. And in for an interview comes guess who? And I thought, isn't life grand? Virgin of Guadalupe has to interview with me. Except you you see, within 2 minutes, the Virgin was interviewing me. And I'm like, lady, I got the job. Why are you interviewing me? Of course, I introduced her to the U.S. Attorney. He didn't even know she was the Virgin of Guadalupe, and he hired her in about 2 minutes. Now, Barbara was a well-respected member of the U.S. Attorney's Office for her intelligence, her writing talents, and her unwavering commitment to the law. She had been a star daughter, a star student, and certainly a star lawyer. But Barbara is also a star friend. Barbara's the kind of friend that you call. You call her in good times, you call her for a good story, you call her for a joke, but by God, you call her when you need someone. Because there's no one that will pull out the stops the way Barbara will when you need her. She's always there with sage advice, unlimited time, and if she has to, she will bend ears, twist arms, and break legs. I'm fairly certain she learned that from the nuns. Now, at Morgan, Lewis, and Bacchius, there was also someone else that was now in the picture, El Americano. That's Paul, by the way. So I'll have to tell you that there are not many communities where a man who has stellar parents, gone to Andover, Princeton, Harvard Law School, is seen suspiciously by a girl's parents and friends. But you understand, we are East Hialeah Cubans, and Barbara was our star. I mean, can he dance? Does he speak Spanish? What about the kids? What are we going to do when they have kids? As it turns out, if you've ever seen Paul dance, he's a much better dancer than Barbara. His Spanish is better than Barbara's, better than mine. And really, in almost every way that counts, he's more Cuban than Barbara. Now, there was still one big wrinkle, and that would be when the girls were born. This is one of the great issues faced by every Cuban-American household. Will the girls have their ears pierced at the hospital? Paul put his foot down, he would have none of it. Girls, we can take care of it this summer. I promise you, any Claires, we can do it. And then we worried. What kind of birthday parties would the girls have? I mean, East Hialeah Cubans don't do homemade, like, cupcakes with punch. No. Our goal is to have a party that at some point someone says, this is really out of control. So the first such gathering was really a wonderful East Hialeah occasion for the girls. And I have to tell you, Paul looked scared. He had no idea what was going on. I went up to Barbara and I said, well, how much of this did you discuss with Paul? And she looked at me like I was the dumbest peasant flute player of the group. He knew nothing, she said to me. Now, that's not to say that Paul hasn't come full circle with the parties. In fact, I remember one year where Barbara decided that the girls' birthday party was going to be a carnival. Now, I don't mean a carnival theme. I mean Barbara rented the carnival. There were the rides, the booths, the food. And Paul was walking around as happy could be with a snow cone and cotton candy. He told me once that unless there were going to be 100 people at the party, he didn't see the point of having one. Now, Barbara, the wife, despite the little trickery on the birthday parties, is also a star of a wife. And if you permit me just for a minute to speak on behalf of Paul and her as a wife, there's a story that will ever be in my mind. And Paul, Barbara, the girls, and I and my daughter went to North Carolina a few years ago. And we decided that one of the things we should do in North Carolina is go see the Biltmore Estate. So Paul, Barbara, and I mean, the girls were all little. My daughter must have been 6. The girls were probably under 10. And we had like an hour. You know how it is when you have small kids. We had an hour before there would be a major meltdown. And Paul said, oh, we could see the mansion in an hour. I mean, we'll just go in, take some pictures, and it'll be fine. Now, if you know Paul and Barbara, you know that they love fine art and they love history. So we get to the mansion, and within 5 minutes, they're walking around like they're on a date. They're holding hands, they're reading the plaques, they're looking at the art. The girls and I are like, what is going on? We are hungry. About 2 hours later, still hungry, we leave the mansion. We get in the car, and I thought, okay, for sure Paul is going to go straight to the nearest restaurant. Oh no. For another half an hour, we wandered around the mountains of North Carolina, while Paul and Barbara discussed the impact of Elizabeth's reign on the design of some table that they had seen at the mansion. Now, it occurred to me later, after the hunger and the wringing of starving children had passed, that these two people were really fabulously good friends. Despite all the pressures of being a working mother, Barbara still enjoyed and made time for her best friend and her true partner. I am lucky that my daughter is a little younger than the Huck girls. It's given me the opportunity on many occasions to be able to call Barbara for advice on what to do on a particular issue with my own daughter. And I can always count on her for her thoughtful counsel, her undivided attention, and that kind encouragement that it's really all going to be all right. Today, our great state is honored to have the first Cuban-American woman sit on its highest court. Now, I may not be out on a very big limb to suggest that she's probably the first East Hialeah on this court, and I'm pretty sure she's the first Virgin of Guadalupe on this or any other court. But today we are also blessed to celebrate a true star, a woman of faith, a daughter who has lived every parent's dream, who has excelled in every aspect of professional life, who is a dedicated wife, an exceptional mother, and a true friend. God bless you, my friend. Congratulations.
Thank you. The court will now recognize the Honorable ELIOT PEDROSA of the Inter-American Development Bank to come to the podium and give remarks.
May it please the court. Chief Justice Kennedy, Associate Justices, gathered friends, family, distinguished guests. You know, it's never easy to follow Jackie BECERRA, now Judge BECERRA, and I should know because I've been doing it my entire life. We happened to go to the same high school, Jackie and I, but we were a few years apart and I transferred in, and so we never met in high school. We actually met years later when we were both practicing lawyers. We were at the same firm, and I walked up to Jackie and I said, "You're Jackie BECERRA. You don't know me, but I'm ELIOT PEDROSA. I went to St. Brendan. I was a debater. You were a legend. Your name was all over the debate room. There were awards. We all looked up to you so much. It's such an honor to finally meet you." And Jackie cocked an eyebrow, looked me up and down, and said, "Oh, I'm going to like you." So, Jackie, you may be Barbara's peasant flute player, but you're my VOG. We're here to honor Justice Barbara Lagoa on the occasion of her formal investiture as the 87th Justice of the Florida Supreme Court. She's the first justice appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis on only his second day in office. And though we're here to honor Barbara, I think it's important to recognize that in doing so, we honor a governor with the wisdom to put an exceptional jurist right where she belongs. We should also honor the men and women of the Florida Supreme Court Judicial Nominating Commission, who ran a fair and inclusive process that culminates today with the appointment of Florida's first Hispanic female Supreme Court justice. This is an important day. It's a solemn occasion. Now, some people would use this opportunity to try to score some cheap laughs by telling embarrassing stories about the honoree. So I'll just get started. All right, we'll start with some numbers. That should be harmless enough. 11,350. The number of cases Judge Lagoa reported on her application that she handled during her 12 years on the appellate bench, longer time on the appellate bench than any other applicant. 469, the number of published opinions that Judge Lagoa authored on the third DCA. 1,992, the year of our Lord in which Barbara graduated with distinction as an editor of the Law Review at Columbia Law School, widely regarded as the best law school in America for kids that didn't get into Harvard. Don't worry, Barbara, apparently they're both good enough for government work. 1989, the year in which Barbara graduated from our alma mater, Florida International University, hands down the best university in the state of Florida. 3, el número de pepinos que me importan lo que piensan los Seminoles, Gators, y Huracanes de este último comentario. For those of you that don't speak Spanish, maybe you should have gone to FIU. 52. Barbara's age as falsely reported by the Miami Herald on the day of her appointment. Fake news, Miami Herald, fake news. Barbara's actual age, not 52. Not 52 is the answer we were looking for. 13 and 11. The age of Barbara and Paul's three beautiful, smart, talented, loving daughters, Claudia, Eloise, and Camilla, who have grown into the young women that they are because of the amazing parents that they've been blessed to have, just as Barbara is the woman that she is because of the loving and supportive parents that she has, Antonio and Araceli, and the wonderful in-laws that she has, Paul Sr. and Donna. 20, the number of years Barbara and I have known each other. 5, the number of roller coasters we've ridden together. 4, the number on which she screamed loud enough to break glass. The sole exception, the Slinky Dog ride at Toy Story Land in Disney Studios in Orlando. Yes, on the Slinky Dog ride, Barbara was very brave. 2, the number of times Barbara referred to herself as a nerd during her televised Supreme Court JNC interview. And 1, the number of times she threatened to kill her own husband during that same televised interview. You think I'm kidding? Look it up, timestamp 1920 on the stream, available from the Florida Channel. Okay, enough with the facts and on to some truth. In the 20 years that Barbara and I have known each other, she's been a friend, a colleague, a mentor, and a confidant. We first met as young associates at Greenberg Traurig, and it was only 3 months into our budding friendship that she came to me and asked if I would be willing to work with her on a new case. I asked which of the litigation partners at Greenberg would be supervising, and she said, none, we'd be on our own. We'd be working pro bono, and we would be up against the most well-funded and experienced opponent in the history of litigation, the federal government of the United States. But the cause was just. We'd be working to represent a 6-year-old little boy whose mother had died 3 days before Thanksgiving, drowned in the Florida Straits while trying to escape that imprisoned island of Cuba. Elizabeth Breton Rodriguez sacrificed her life so that her son, Elian, could grow up in freedom. And we believed we could use the law to vindicate a dying mother's wish. So into the foxhole together we went. And after 6 months, countless briefs, a few all-nighters, 2 oral arguments, and 1 midnight raid by armed commandos, we learned what it was like to lose. To feel so desperately that we were right, but to fail nonetheless. Losing in court hurts, it always does, but when your client's liberty is at stake, it hurts all the more. And nothing hurts quite so much as watching armed federal agents use force to preempt process. For someone like Justice Lagoa, branded by an experience like this, a deep and abiding commitment to the rule of law and to the separation of powers isn't a slogan to be read from behind a podium, and it isn't a catchphrase to be used in an interview with the governor or with the JNC. It's seared into her soul, and as citizens of this state, we're lucky that it is. But it's not only professional experiences that shape Barbara's approach to judicial decision-making. We can glean insights into how she will sit on this bench from her more lighthearted interests as well. For example, some know that Barbara is a big fan of Star Wars, but she would be very upset with me if I didn't clarify that she's only a fan of the original trilogy. And by that, I mean the original trilogy, not that revisionist garbage in the special edition. Barbara knows that in that day, in that canteen on Tatooine, Han shot first. What can we learn from this? We can learn that Barbara fully immerses herself in the details of her cases, and that she despises efforts to misrepresent the record. Counsel, beware. Many people also know that Barbara is a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But did you know how deep her fandom goes and how far back it goes? Did you know, for example, that Barbara's first crush was on Peter Parker? Yes, Spider-Man. I'm sorry, Paul. Although, I'm looking at you, those boyish good looks, that slender yet athletic frame, that friendly neighborhood charm. I think I see what's going on here. From Barbara's love of Marvel, too, lessons can be learned about her legal philosophy. Of course, the Avengers embody our traditional American values, which Barbara cherishes: courage, loyalty, sacrifice, teamwork, service, restraint. But another familiar lesson lurks just beneath the surface. Now, if you haven't seen the Marvel movies or you aren't caught up, don't worry, there won't be any spoilers here. The premise of the films is that Earth's mightiest heroes come together to use their complementary powers to defend the universe. Their ultimate adversary is a purple-skinned, muscle-bound, erudite philosopher king, the mad titan Thanos. Thanos believes that he is the only being in the universe who understands the looming environmental crisis, and he has a radical plan to solve it. Wipe out half of all life so that the survivors can live in a more just society. We'll call his plan the Purple New Deal. Thanos knows that the Purple New Deal is controversial. He knows it's going to be expensive. I mean, it hasn't been scored by the Congressional Budget Office, but the costs will be astronomical. So what is he to do? Well, he could mount a primary challenge to a sitting New York congressman and then use the notoriety and free press showered on him by a compliant media, together with some quirky YouTube videos and tweets, to build public opinion and push the entire field of presidential challengers to support his plan before they know the details. But that could take months. So instead, Thanos embarks on a quest to amass absolute power by collecting the 6 Infinity Stones. If only Thanos had read the Federalist Papers, like Barbara has, he would know from Federalist 47 that the accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary in the same hands, may be justly pronounced the very definition of tyranny. But alas, the philosophical underpinnings of Thanos' worldview do not come from Madison or Hamilton. They are Hobbesian in perspective. He believes that the lives he simultaneously means to snuff out and save are nasty, poor, brutish, and short. And so those lives, their liberty, their happiness mean nothing to him. His goal is a just society, and the ends, he believes, justify the means. What stands between us and Thanos' dastardly plans? The Avengers, Earth's mightiest heroes. You see, unlike Thanos, the Avengers have read their Federalist Papers. So they know from Federalist 51 that for liberty to survive the Leviathan, power must be separated and ambition must be made to combat ambition. Will our heroes, through the cosmic separation of powers, defeat Thanos? As a shareholder in the Disney Corporation, all I can say is that tickets are on sale now at the theater near you. But this does bring me back to our purpose here today. Today, Barbara takes her place among Florida's mightiest heroes. Like her on-screen analogs, she runs toward our problems, not away from them, because that's what heroes do. And so it's through her continued service and her sacrifice, and that of the other justices on this court, and that of the judges on the inferior courts, and of the legislators and of the members of the executive, co-equal branches of government, sometimes working together, but always in check and with balance, that liberty will be preserved and justice secured. Our hero is here. So I'd like to end with the presentation of a gift, an award, really, to celebrate Barbara's courage and valor in defense of the rule of law. It's not a hammer or a shield or a suit of iron. It's more personal, and it recalls an act of true bravery. Mr. Chief Justice, if I may ask the honoree to approach the podium.
Most certainly.
Let's go here so that everyone can see it. Madam Justice, if I would ask you to reveal the gift. A sweet award. Before I take my own seat and mercifully end these remarks, I do have one more number to share. On behalf of Nilda and I, of your friends and family gathered here, of your friends and family back home, we love you, Barbara. 3,000. God bless you, God bless the great state of Florida, and God bless this honorable court.
I am now pleased to call upon Ms. Coralie Lopez-Castro to approach the podium for remarks.
May it please the court. Justices of the Supreme Court, Judge Huck, Barbara, and the friends from the 305. My name is Coralie Lopez-Castro, and I am lucky enough to be a member of the Barbara Lagoa fan club. I would like to say that I'm the president, but I think there's a few people in this room that would rise and fight me for that honor. I am, however, fortunate enough to be part of a small group of women that includes Lily Sanchez and Judge Safi, who have dinner on a regular basis with Barbara, so we can reflect on the good, the bad, and the ugly of being a working mom. When the stars align and you're a good lawyer or judge, you're a good wife, and you're a good mother on the same day, it's great. But being a working mom is not easy. And in fact, the concept of easy will be the theme for my remarks today. Many years ago, at one of our dinners, I gave all the women in our group the easy button. I pretended they all needed it, but it was really for Barbara. One of the things that Barbara has failed at is pressing the easy button. To give you a glimpse of how she refuses to press the easy button, I will talk about her relationship with decorations, Halloween, and Captain Marvel. I figured we've touched on Hialeah, La Virgen de Guadalupe, Barbara's law career, so I needed to lighten things up a bit. By the way, this is Hialeah, Westchester, Coral Gables, okay? I want to make that clear, okay? Decorations. A few years ago, my husband, another Americano, and I were co-presidents of the parent council at Carrollton School of the Sacred Heart. When Sister Cook asked us if we wanted to serve, Brad and I were like, how much time does it take? She said, not much, but the big responsibility is the staff appreciation lunch. We thought, we can do this. The theme of the lunch one year was The Wizard of Oz. Barbara was on the council. When each member of the council volunteered to take on a responsibility, Barbara and Desi Johnson volunteered to be in charge of the decorations. I thought to myself, no, no, no. Just volunteer, pick the caterer and the menu, and move on. But nope. What I did not know was that Barbara was prepared to treat the staff appreciation lunch like the Met Gala and proceed to make the most spectacular flower arrangements that had hot air balloons and arrange for hundreds of chairs to be covered in silk. Silk. Do you know how hard it is to tie silk so it stays put and it looks nice? It's very, very hard. And yes, she required us to stay at school very late until it was perfect. She would not press the easy button.
That was easy.
When you don't have a title, you need to, bring props with you. Okay, let's go to Christmas decorations. Barbara has a few. I'm not talking about ornaments for a tree and a wreath. Barbara's a hoarder. She has a warehouse full of decorations. With her free time, She would help to decorate the Carrollton campus for Christmas. She had a life-size nativity set and ornaments, not ornaments like this, huge ornaments. Carrollton looked like the enchanted forest, but I'm pretty sure the Americano put an end to that. Let's move on to Halloween. I don't know if you know this about Barbara and Paul, but they move from house to house like we change clothes. Most of us know how scary it is to move, packing and moving. So Barbara thought she would make it a little scarier and set up a haunted house at her new house before she moved in. I'm not talking about a room that's dark with scary music in the background. I'm talking about what you see at Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Pictures. A haunted house that would scare most of us in this room. I don't want to mention how she dresses for Halloween because I don't want the governor to think twice about his choice for the Supreme Court. Finally, Captain Marvel. If you have not been living under a rock, you have seen or at least heard of the new Avengers movie, Endgame. Warning, spoiler alert, just want to be clear. Many people could debate who is the best character, and based on Eliot's remarks, I'm sure Barbara has an opinion on that. However, no one can debate the best scene. Let me set the stage. Spider-Man is nearly struck down trying to pass the Iron Gauntlet to Ant-Man. He's tired and passes the gauntlet to Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is played by Brie Larson. She reappears in this movie with this bold, great short haircut. She never presses the easy button. Spider-Man timidly asks Captain Marvel, "How are you going to get past this daunting army right before you?" And a chorus of female voices says, "With our help." All of the superheroes are there, and they take their superhero poses. Barbara, you have not chosen an easy path. Having a job in Tallahassee, flying back and forth with unpredictable schedules and flights, 2 complicated work schedules, trying to integrate them with the girls' schedule, and trying to sleep when you can. At this time, I would like all the ladies who are friends with Barbara to stand, please. Your friends are here. We may not be superheroes, but we are here to help you with anything. Listening to you, helping with the girls, or just sharing a glass of wine. Being a mother of 3 myself, I understand the value of having friends who just listen. Having friends that help me raise my kids, and the true pleasure of sharing a glass of good wine. Thank you. I saw your father being interviewed by Hispanic media when the governor announced your appointment. They asked him, "Did you know that she was going to be a Supreme Court justice?" He responded, "I knew she would do something special." You know why? Because you don't press the easy button. That is why I love and admire you. You wanted that staff appreciation luncheon to be better than they had ever seen for the hundreds of employees at Carrollton. You wanted the girls and their friends to have the best haunted house that they would talk. Claudia, Eloise, and Camila, your mother's passion for everything, be it decorations, Halloween, Marvel Comics, is remarkable. She's either all in or out. Her job as a mother, however, she executes with the most passion. Never doubt it. It is the most important job she has. Now, I ask the Chief Justice permission to approach the bench and leave something for Justice Lagoa. Maybe she'll use it sometime. Thank you.
It is now my honor to ask the President of the Florida Bar, Ms. Michelle SUSKAUER to approach the podium to make a presentation.
Good afternoon. May it please the Court, Chief Justice Kennedy, Justices of the Florida Supreme Court, members of the bench, and the family and many, many friends of Justice Lagoa. It is truly a pleasure to be here today representing the Florida Bar and the Board of Governors. Alexander Hamilton said, "The first duty of society is justice." So who we choose to dispense that justice is a fundamental reflection of who we are as a society. We are here celebrating the choice of Barbara Lagoa as a justice of the Florida Supreme Court, and for that wise choice, we thank the members of the Supreme Court Judicial Nominating Commission and Governor DeSantis. It's a long-standing tradition for the bar to give each new justice a Bible on which he or she will swear the oath of office. And while many of you have heard me speak this year on the importance of elevating women to leadership roles in our communities, in our bar and on our bench, this is a good opportunity to remember that elevating the best and wisest women to the bench is a tradition as old as this Bible. The book of Judges speaks of the wisdom and humility of Deborah, who held a similarly exalted position thousands of years ago. Like our honoree today, Deborah was the ultimate multitasker. She was a wife, a mother, a judge, and a leader of her people who was called to serve her community during a difficult time. I am so pleased and proud to see Barbara join in this tradition of wise, honorable, and strong women answering their community's call to leadership. The bar and our Supreme Court enjoy a very close and respectful relationship, and I know that that will continue with our newest justice. So it is my great honor and privilege as the representative of almost 107,000 members of the Florida Bar, the third largest in the country, to present her with this Bible as a token of the deep faith and confidence that we all have in her. Congratulations.
Now I will recognize Mr. Roland Sanchez-Medina, former president of the Cuban-American Bar Association, to come to the podium for a presentation.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm reminded why I never wanted to litigate at this very moment. You have to excuse me, I'm a transactional attorney. Chief Justice Kennedy, Justice of the Florida Supreme Court, VIPs, friends and families, I'm honored to be a past president of CABA and representing CABA today. For those that don't know, CABA is a voluntary bar organization, 2,000 members strong. We count as some of our best and our brightest, Justice Labarga, obviously Justice Lagoa. And it was about 10 years ago. Oh, let me add one thing. Justice Luck was a frequent attendee to our event, so I'm going to be bold and take credit for Justice Luck as well. It's hard to believe that 10 years have passed since I was here at Judge Labarga's investiture. And for the record, it was this day and that day, to me, is the most professional and most profound professional moment of my career. Thank you, and thank you again for this opportunity. Governor DeSantis left, but I did want to tell him and congratulate him on the selection of these fine members of the Supreme Court. Well, I personally don't know Judge Muniz. He is well known and well regarded in CABA circles, and I'm quoting no less of an authority as former Governor Bush, who used the word brilliant to describe Justice Muniz in a personal conversation. For those on the more liberal side of the political landscape, there was much fear and consternation as to where the appointees were going to be and how it was going to change the tenor of the court. But I can tell you that this Democrat could not be happier with the newest members of the court, and certainly with the future holds for this great state of Florida. But today we are here for Justice Lagoa, and one can only imagine the pride, or as we Cubans say, el orgullo, that we have on this august occasion. As we stand here today, two members of the court are the first female Hispanic and the first male Hispanic to serve in the Florida Supreme Court. For CABA, which is mostly comprised of Cuban immigrants and the children of Cuba, the daughters and sons of Cuban immigrants, we take a lot of pride in this. But also, this affirms what a great country we live in. How does one thank a country that allows for dreams like this to become a reality? And when I say dreams, I don't mean the Mount Olympus dreams like serving in the Florida Supreme Court, but I'm talking about the Sanchez-Medina dreams, the BECERRA dreams, the PEDROSA dreams, the LOPEZ-CASTRO dreams of even speaking in this venue. Frankly, I don't know of another immigrant group that sings God Bless America with more passion and more fervor than Cuban Americans. I would be remiss in not mentioning another CABA member, Honorable Rudy Ruiz, who was sworn in earlier this week to the federal bench. It's going to be tough for CABA to have another week like this. That's going to be a challenge. I wish Justice Lagoa's parents were here, but I thought, being a momentous occasion, I thought they should probably write a book on raising children. I've come up with a couple of titles. You too can have your child become a member of the Florida Supreme Court if you buy this book. Florida Supreme Court made easy. I've known Justice Lagoa for about close to 30 years. It seemed like a lifetime ago we were law clerks in the summer of 1990. You know, back then, obviously, she was Barbara, a young lady from, the city of Hialeah, Florida, La Ciudad Progresa, and now I know that it's East Hialeah, and so I'm very grateful that we know exactly where in Hialeah she came from. Even then, you could recognize her intellect, her ambition, her drive, just as the kindness and warmth that she wore on her sleeve. What was also obvious about her was her zest for life, her optimism, her easy nature, and the goodness, for lack of a better word. I'm not sure that it's appropriate to use the word bubbly, but certainly her bright and bubbly personality was always apparent back then as a younger Barbara Lagoa. Things are a little different now, but. And I'm not sure that bubbly would be the word that appellate lawyers in Miami-Dade County would use, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I also remember the first time I remember I was with her around the time when she first met Paul Huck, the lucky man who obviously eventually became her husband. Paul is similarly intelligent, similarly talented, and extremely supportive. I mean, this is an accomplishment of a family. This is not one person in and of itself. They started a family, and their three young ladies are a testament to a life well lived. After that summer, Barbara went on to distinguish herself in the private practice, U.S. Attorney's Office, and finally the 3rd DCA. And I was going to go into the numbers like Elliot did, because I love appeals. I'm joking. I haven't read an appeal in about 26 years. So I thought I'd come up with something a little bit more personal. As one grows older and has children, you want to be a witness to the old adage, good things happen to good people. To feel that those words ring true. Those are words that I used to tell my children all the time. However, as one grows a little bit older, you start to consider that maybe this axiom isn't true. However, as I stand here today, I can tell you that this is exactly what is happening today. A wonderful thing is happening to a wonderful lady. Justice Lagoa, Godspeed on this new chapter of your life. I have no doubt you will continue to make us very, very proud. You will be missed, but I think that this is where you were meant to be. Thank you very much.
The time has now come for the high point of today's investiture ceremony. At this time, the Honorable Paul C. Huck, Senior Judge of the United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida, will administer the oath of office. He will be joined there by the immediate family of Justice Lagoa, and her enrobing then will be performed here in the well by her husband, Paul C. Huck, Jr., and their children, Claudia, Eloise, and Camila Huck.
Mr. Chief Justice, thank you for the privilege and the great pleasure that you give to me to administer the oath this afternoon. And I'm really glad I made this trip up from Miami because I've learned more about my daughter-in-law, Barbara, from these three speakers than in the 25 years I've known her. And we'll talk more about that in Miami. It's with kind of mixed emotions. I'm glad I made this trip. I want you to know that. But it's with mixed emotions because until right about now, Justice Lagoa and I have had a legitimate discussion about who outranked whom. In about 2 minutes, that debate will be resolved. We've been here before, haven't we? Are you ready? I
Barbara Lagoa,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the government
the Constitution and the government
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform
and that I will well and faithfully perform
the duties of a justice
the duties of a justice
of the Supreme Court
of the Supreme Court
on which I am now about to enter.
on which I'm about now to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You now outrank me.
The Marshal will now escort Justice Lagoa to the bench of the Florida Supreme Court. Now the time has come to hear from the woman of the hour. Justice Lagoa, will you please do us the honor of giving your response?
Thank you, Chief Justice Kennedy. And thank you to all my speakers for your remarks and prayers. I see so many dear friends here today from different points in my life, from childhood to adulthood. Thank you for being here to share this special day with me, especially those who came up from South Florida. I started receiving texts and photos from gate D60 and the party plane at around 6 a.m. Welcome to Tallahassee. Bienvenidos a Tallahassee. I would not be here today without the help of many individuals, and I would like to take this opportunity to publicly thank them. First and foremost, I would like to thank Governor Ron DeSantis for this appointment. I'm eternally grateful for the opportunity to serve this great state of Florida, and I'm deeply humbled in his confidence in me with this appointment. I would also like to thank the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission for giving me the opportunity to be considered by the governor and for putting their professional and personal lives on hold to dedicate countless hours to this nomination process. Chair Jason Unger, Vice Chair Nilda Pedrosa, Cynthia Angelos, Fred Karlinski, Heather Stearns, Jesse Panuccio, Israel Reyes, Hala Sandridge, and Jeannie Tate.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate everything that you did. I also want to thank Dan Norby, General Counsel to then Governor, now Senator Rick Scott, Ben Gibson, Counsel to Governor DeSantis' transition, and Joe Jaco, General Counsel to Governor DeSantis, for all of their work as well during this process. Thank you. But I would be remiss if I did not thank Governor Jeb Bush for appointing me to the 3rd District Court of Appeal almost 13 years ago. Without his confidence in me 13 years ago, I would not be here today. For the last 12 years, I was honored to serve the people of the state of Florida as a judge on the 3rd District Court of Appeal. I want to thank all my former colleagues for their camaraderie, friendship, and support. I especially want to thank former Chief Judges Frank Shepard and Richard Suarez, as he is affectionately known and called by my daughters, Uncle Rick. Your friendship, advice, and support 13 years ago made all the difference. Thank you to both of you. It's important that I also thank my former and current law clerks who have helped me tremendously at the 3rd. Most of them are here today, sitting in row 3B. April Velu, who has been with me since the beginning, and Michael Woods. Both of them are still with me at this court. Alexandra Valdez, Stephen Ludovicki, Whitney Kilroy, Stephanie Handler, Daniel Sampson, and Catherine Maxwell. Thank you all for your hard work, loyalty, and dedication. Can you stand, please? I also want to thank my new court family, my judicial assistant, Brenda Williams, who is just outstanding and truly the nicest person I've ever met. As well as the most recent addition to our law clerk family, Charles Lecoq, who showed up this week for the investiture, the wedding ceremony, and has been very busy doing that. Thank you, Charles. And thank you, Chief Judge Brad Thomas, for letting me steal Charles from you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Brad. To my new colleagues, and my not-so-new colleagues, Justice Luck, I look forward to many, many productive years of working together. Chief Justice Kennedy, Justice Polston, Justice Labarga, and Justice Lawson. You have gone out of your ways to make the 3 new justices feel so welcomed and at home. We cannot thank you enough for how welcomed you have made us feel. Thank you so much. You've been generous with your time and your advice, and it is an absolute joy to enter this building to work here with you. Thank you. My parents, Antonio and Araceli Lagoa, could not travel to Tallahassee for this ceremony, but they are streaming this live, so thank you, Internet and Florida Channel. Hola, mami, papi. Estamos vivos de Tallahassee. Their presence is felt in me, my daughters, and all those that know them. And I would most certainly not be here today but for their love and support that I received from them. Their story is shared by so many others in this room. They left Cuba without anything but their education, their strong work ethic, and their desire to succeed. And these are values that they instilled in me. Words can never express how lucky I am to have the 2 of them as my parents. I never imagined growing up in Hialeah, attending Immaculate Conception Catholic School, and Monsignor Edward Pace, that I would be sitting here today on this bench as the 87th Justice of the Florida Supreme Court. My oldest friend, Ophelia Ravello Lim, who really was my sister since I was an only child, and who is here today, can attest to this fact, since we talked about many, many things, and this was never one of them. But I understand the significance and responsibility that comes with this appointment as the first Hispanic female justice. the first Cuban-American female justice, and the fourth woman to sit on this court since its formation in 1845 when Florida became a state. Many of us in this room are the children and grandchildren of individuals who fled from dictatorship. For many of us first-generation Americans, our parents took whatever job they could find in order to provide for us. And while their lives may not have been what they dreamt of while they were growing up, their dreams did not die. Through hard work, education, faith, and a strong community, they succeeded. It's sometimes easy to take that success story for granted, but I often wonder how many of us would have the grit to do what our parents and grandparents did. Because of the shared experiences of our parents and grandparents, many of us in this room have a special appreciation for the rule of law. Because we understand what it means when individual liberties, respect for private property, and basic human rights are abandoned by a government. And this is why the oath I just took is not just words on a piece of paper to me. I am particularly mindful of my obligation under our constitutional system of separated powers. Unlike the country my parents fled, we are a nation of laws and not of men. Now, I know I wanted to keep my remarks brief since I know everyone wants to get to the reception. I probably failed in that at this point, but I need to recognize some people here today whose friendship goes back many, many years and who are my extended family. Manny and Annie Condre, Justin Safey, Nilda Pedrosa, Bob Martinez, Jesse Panuccio, Uncle Jesse, Lobster, Raquel Rodriguez, Senator George Lemieux, who we knew before he became senator. Happy birthday, George. Barry Rothberg, Jenny and Reddy Ruiz, Charlie and Desi Johnson, Chris Keyes, Nushin Safey, Lillian Sanchez, and finally, the Jimenez brothers, Frank and Mark Jimenez. Frank flew literally, I don't even know how you got here. He had a speech to do this morning in Miami. Thank you, Frank, for your friendship. You're the best. Thank you also to my Carrollton family. Many of you are here today at this ceremony. Some of you even drove this morning from Miami. Thank you. Your support and your help with the girls is what makes this possible. Thank you to the Fanjul family, the Vasquez family, the Ibarra family, the Telain family, the Bales family, the Mestre family, the Garcia family, the Lopez family, the Crook family, and the Cordero family. Thank you for being here today. It means so much to me, and I cannot thank you enough for all you do for me. I would like to conclude by thanking my immediate family. Thank you to my in-laws, Paul and Donna Huck, for all your encouragement and support. During this process, my father-in-law gave me perhaps what was the best advice, which was to be myself. What can I say about my better half? My partner and my fighter, Paul Huck. I would most certainly not be here today without your love and support. When we discussed whether I should apply for this position, there was never any hesitation on your part. Your support and love for me are boundless. You are an amazing person, husband, and father, and I am truly blessed to share this life with you for the past 23 years. Thank you, Paul. Finally, I want to thank 3 people who make me want to be a better person every day. My daughters, Claudia, Eloise, and Camilla. You inspire me with your kindness, intelligence, thoughtfulness, and humor. Life is never boring with the 3 of you, and I thank God every day for allowing me to be your mother. Thank you very much all for being here today and sharing this moment with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Lagoa. The court now invites Mr. Jason Gonzalez to go to the podium for the purpose of delivering the benediction.
Mr. Chief Justice, may it please the court. Please bow with me. The Holy Scriptures say that for those who love you, you can take even the most difficult circumstances, God, and work all things together for good. We see evidence of that throughout this courtroom today. We thank you for Governor Ron DeSantis and First Lady Casey DeSantis. You delivered to lead our state and make these appointments against what sometimes seemed like impossible odds. Please continue to give Governor DeSantis the wisdom he displayed with these Supreme Court appointments. Today, God, we also see evidence in this courtroom of you taking another seemingly impossible situation and turning it into something good. 60 years ago in Cuba, communists, while proclaiming you don't even exist, murdered thousands and ravaged what was then the most prosperous nation in Latin America. Yet even out of those tragic man-made circumstances, you had plans to turn a horrible situation into some good things. And one of those very good things was the way you brought the Lagoa family to Florida, where one day you would see that their daughter would rise to the highest court in our state and preside with a special appreciation for the importance of the rule of law. So today we thank you especially for Justice Lagoa. Give her and the other justices the wisdom and humility to always follow the written law and act judicially and not with personal bias. We pray for her and her husband, Paul, and all the leaders here with us today that you will protect them and their families, and we pray that you continue to keep their marriages strong. And for Justice Lagoa and Paul's daughters, Claudia, Camilla, and Eloise, we pray that growing up with their mom on the Florida Supreme Court will be a blessing for them and not a hardship. For all that you have mercifully done for this court and this state, we thank you and we give you all the praise. It is in your perfect and holy name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Before we end this ceremonial session, I have a couple of announcements. First, we ask everyone to join us at a reception in the Rotunda sponsored by the Florida Supreme Court Historical Society and the Cuban-American and Dade County Bar Associations. And second, I would like to thank each and every one of you who attended this event today. All of you are our special guests, the people who are here, we are here to serve, and the reason why we even exist as a court. And we are genuinely honored that you joined us here to witness a moment of Florida history as it happened. Court is now adjourned. God bless you all.